China is tightening its energy security with the help of Russia. Moscow agreed to double oil supplies to its eastern neighbor in return for a $2 billion loan from Beijing, along with other deals. So the two powers also want a geopolitical change, with the new Chinese president saying ties with Russia will help bring about a fair world order. RT's Irina Galushka has been following Xi Jinping's first official overseas trip.
Some of the major points that the Chinese leader has also made, of course, was about the cooperation between Russia and China. Among other things that the two countries also agree on is the fact that it is about time to leave the old stereotypes behind. He said that we're living in the 21st century, and therefore the Cold War era is gone and over with, and therefore the stereotypes and thinking along those lines also has to go. And he also mentioned that, of course, Russia and China, their cooperation will provide for a fairer world order. He also mentioned, of course, the need to not just to move away from stereotypes, but also to move towards the multipolar world. And the multipolarity of the world is also one of the founding principles of BRICS. Of course, BRICS essentially was a trade and economic organization, but it is now moving increasingly towards becoming a major geopolitical player. And that is going to be one of the main subjects of discussions during an upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa. And yet, despite, of course, there are many agreements on the political level, Russia and China still have several things that they need to work on. And among those things is the gas supplies deal from Russia to China, which has been in the works for 10 years. And it does look like during this visit, Russia and China have made some headway towards finding a solution. But the details of that deal are yet to be figured out. And it is expected that those details will come up until the end of the year. But of course, the Chinese leader said that Russia and China nevertheless are each other's biggest partner and are obviously seeing eye to eye on a lot of issues. And cooperation is something that the two countries are going not just to continue, but will bolster. He said that his trip bears a symbolic significance by happening in March, because the leader hopes that he will see some very good fruits born forth from the seeds that he has sown during this visit.
More now on the story with geopolitical analyst William Engdahl, who's also the author of Myths, Lies and Oil Wars. Mr. Engdahl, how much weight do you give to the fact that Russia was Xi Jinping's first official trip abroad?
I think the fact that Russia was the first choice visit for the new president is of huge geopolitical significance. It sends a signal to the United States, to Washington, who has been very bristly and increasingly militarily hostile to China in the last 2 years with the Asia pivot, so-called. And it also brings together the one combination that I think for China is the only winning combination, where it can create a counterweight to the growing hostility from NATO and from the United States. And that is the Eurasian combination with Russia and China as the fulcrum of that.
We know that China is one of the world's highest consumers of energy, and now Russia's Rosneft is now the largest oil producer in the world. Why is Moscow interested in having Beijing growing economically?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of your question.
Why is Moscow interested in having Beijing grow economically?
Well, the growth of Beijing, or the growth of China, really, is the future growth of Russia. If you look at the resources of each country, it's a beautifully matched situation. There are frictions, of course, but I think these frictions can be dealt with. But what Russia has to bring to the table is essential for China, and that is energy security over pipeline land routes, gas and oil primarily. And at a time when China's African oil sources are being increasingly put under pressure from AFRICOM, in Sudan and Libya and elsewhere. And so this is a very, very crucial thing for China to get this right with Russia. For Russia, it also is an extremely important orientation to what President Putin calls the new Eurasian direction of the Russian economy, focusing increasingly on building up the Eurasian space. And I think the Chinese have already begun with land bridges, high-speed railroad bridges for transportation linkages across China, partly through Russia and into Western Europe, all the way to Holland. And I think that can form the arteries, if you will, of a new, really a new economy on the planet over the next 20 to 50 years. And that is the Eurasian land space, which would go, I talk sometimes about an iron triangle of Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran. And the land space that encompasses, if linked with high-speed rail infrastructure, especially not ocean-going, but rail, so that it's contiguous, you have the potential to create one of the most healthy and fastest-growing economic markets in the world at a time when Europe is struggling, when the United States is in depression.
So not only will they be helping each other economically, but do you think politically China needs Russia or Russia needs China? What do you make of that?
Oh, they both need each other. If Russia and China are put at odds against each other, then the game is over, and then you have what the Pentagon calls full spectrum dominance, where there's no contender to sole superpower hegemony from Washington. I think that's a very unhealthy state of the world, both for China, for Russia, for the rest of the world, but also for the United States. That too much power concentrated in too few hands is always a danger to world peace. So China needs Russia because China lacks certain things that Russia has, not only raw materials, it lacks the scientific know-how. Russian science during the Cold War was primus par excellence. There was no competition from the West in terms of basic science.
Certainly.
And that still is on the table.
Geopolitical analyst William Endall, author of Myths, Lies and Oil Awards, giving us his insight on Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow. Thank you for that.
Thank you.